Welcome back. Our rolling coverage continues. Voting Day, national and provincial elections 2019. I'm Frances Hurd and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg and also from Tshwane, where Peter Ndoro, my colleague, is standing by at the Rock. Peter, over to you.
Francis, thanks very much indeed. We're at the Results Operations Centre in Pretoria, and today, we've been monitoring the election day. Political parties sitting at their desks and communicating, no doubt, with their party agents around the country as they've been observing today's elections. And we're now less than 45 minutes away from the polls closing. And again, another appeal to our voters to get out to the polling stations, because if you're in the queue by 9 o'clock, you still can vote. They won't stop you voting. We've been watching all sorts of things, and this beautiful screen in front of me here, perhaps the camera can get a look, and what it tells us are some of the things that have become important to people on social media at the moment, and the bigger the words on this screen means it's getting the most attention in the tweets. And so SA Elections 2019 looks to be the biggest mention on social media at the moment, and in there you'll find other things like 2019 elections, vote BLF, geopolitical, you're seeing Kula DA, I voted ANC, or all sorts of other things, which is interesting. Responsible citizen. Look, Twitter isn't the entire universe, so it's nice to look at, but don't bet your house on based on what's happening on Twitter and what's going to happen in the elections. But somebody who's been watching and researching and trying to figure out what all of this might mean for South Africa, I'm now joined by Dr. Susan Booysen, who's the Director of Research at the MAPUNGUBWE Institute of Strategic Reflection. Thanks so much for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, you've done a few elections before, and I just wonder, there's a familiarity when we see the infrastructure, when we see the political parties sitting, but there's something different about how it feels this time. What do you think it is?
Yes, indeed. That's very observant. The content of this building is very, very different. The first place is there's so much uncertainty surrounding these elections, the position of the governing party, dominance fraying at the edges, and yet some of the opinion polls indicating that after all of what's happened in the last 5 and more, but especially the last 5 years in South African politics, there's a possibility, that's not the only opinion poll, but a possibility that election results could be roughly the same. But then there's so many indicators say, no, wait, it cannot be, it is not going to be. And then there's also this host of new political parties filling this venue. It's almost this surreal experience to walk amongst these tables and see these acronyms that are only just familiar because one has memorized them recently, not because there's been any party political presence in recent years. And part of this too is a sense of not quite finding its feet, or the Electoral Commission. From all the media briefings we've had today and so many other reports, formal, informal, we hear of so many problems, and then in some places people saying, but these problems have been there all along. Tlokwe a few years ago was a real eye-opener, and there is also so much more scrutiny. It's really elections observation all around. So many people with social media can pin out problems, and the IEC, I don't think quite being satisfactory in the way they've been dealing with the questions, at least from the floor in media briefings here, not quite seeming to take the problems too seriously. And we wonder, with so many new participants on the floor and in the party political electoral game, whether they are not going to be shouting and screaming later on about things that have gone wrong technically, administratively in this election.
What sense do you get in terms of, at the end of the day, whether we can say that the vote was free and fair? Because ultimately that's the key. Yes, there will be problems. Yes, there might even be some people who don't get to vote. But in the end, democracy is about, by and large, was the will of the people heard? Will we hear the will of the people? I mean, we've heard of the incidents, polling stations that opened late, some people that were intimidated. But by the end of it all, can we say that, by and large, South Africa voted and the will of the people was heard?
That is one of the big calls election observers always make at the end of elections. And one thing they really take into consideration is whether the incidents that had occurred will be making a difference to the overall result of the election. And if it does not, they normally also come out with the language of giving advice on how to improve it in future. But so many South Africans being so articulate and having so much access to media and expressing discontent, that it could be a question of meeting those halfway. And we know that the Electoral Commission, as I've been told in some interview I did this morning, has also taken care. They expect more complaints, objections in this process, also from some more inexperienced parties that just want to have absolutely every vote to be absolutely technically correct and not having been experienced in this whole process. But the IEC having up their infrastructure, their appeals process, their complaints process to be able to deal with that and saying, yes, there will be an election result and a good one to declare come Saturday.
So by tomorrow night, I think we'll have a good idea of trends that are forming and perhaps which way the results are going. I think people generally are starting to feel as if, these elections, no matter what happens, South Africa will never be the same again. What do you think might be different as a result of these elections?
Yes, in the main, we are probably seeing a definitive turn in the dominance of the ANC fading, in generational change starting to push through, new political parties emerging. And interestingly also, we're going to see path breakers on the differentiation between ANC elections and national elections like these, because there was such a big moment in Nasrec and the ANC elections, and so much change came through that, and I think many voters feel they actually already know who is likely to be president, who is likely to be in government after that big change in the ANC. And I think that brought in a big normalization of South African politics, and it is going to impact in the longer term on how multi-party democracy is being taken forward. Especially then with the addition, we're opening up the territory of political parties and addition of so many new ones, small political parties. Probably not all of them are going to fall by the wayside. We can always see one or two or three of the new ones coming in and perhaps growing in future. And very interesting too, this election has shown how no ideological pool or policy direction is any longer unique, exclusive territory to be drinking from that pond. Around each little pond, whether it's nationalization or black consciousness or narrow capitalism, we see a whole host of political parties contesting just for those ideas. And their elections like these will actually be very helpful to determine the pecking order.
All right, Dr. Susan Booysen, we're going to have to leave it there.
Thank you.
Thanks so much indeed for your insights, but we look forward to hearing more again. I think tomorrow morning you'll be on our Morning Live program giving us some insights and the first trickle of results perhaps that have come through by then and what they might be telling us.
Yes, we'll stop holding our breath at that moment.
Absolutely. All right, that was Dr. Susan Booysen, who's the Director for Research at MAPUNGUBWE Institute for Strategic Reflection, talking to us. And one thing that we do know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure today. What we know is that people will stop voting at 9 o'clock, and tomorrow morning we'll start to get a better picture of what they decided and the future that they are laying the foundation for us going forward.